Hello, Smegheads, and welcome back to Smug Mode. This is a podcast where we talk about the British sci-fi comedy classic Red Dwarf. As always, I am your host, Ben Gilman. As always, I'm joined by Dan Raj. I've gone in the wrong order.
Wow, yeah, you have. I wasn't ready for that, but hello,
Just
everyone.
it, man.
Number one, Dan. Number one. Tom Hill.
Hey.
And Troy Salmon.
What is up?
Yeah, it's all good. So today we're here to talk about, we're in season 7, episode 4 of Duct Soup. Smug Mode is engaged. I've completely fucked this up already, haven't I? Right, let's just keep going.
We're cool, man. We're cool.
It's all cool. The crew are forced to crawl through the service ducts to restart the engines of the Red Dwarf. They discover interesting things about each other along the way. And also, Crichton doesn't shut the fuck up about Kachansky for the whole episode, but we'll get to that. So, this one, again, no audience. So we start with, I've just realized something. I had a thing of why can't she change her bedroom because of the pipes, but then I realized it's not Red Dwarf. They've most probably only got certain bedrooms on Starbug, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
She's getting a bit mental now already.
she's lost his snapped.
Well, who wouldn't? If you can't get to sleep, you get a bit arsey. I feel quite sorry for Kachansky in this episode.
Retuck, Hanunga.
Yeah. Kanunk.
Hang on.
Where's Luke come from?
But like, what do you guys think? Because this is, obviously Lister can't. Lister's also dealing with one of life's toughest questions: to pee or not to pee.
Yes.
I mean, we've all been there when we've all been like, should I go to the toilet? I want to sleep. I better go to the toilet. I've been there.
Yeah, everyone's been there. Trust me. When we're too tired to get up, those ones. Everyone's been there. Damn! I gotta go to the toilet now. I'm gonna drag my ass all the way to the toilet.
And we get Craychars in his pants the whole episode, basically.
And the sweats as well. He was sweating a little bit as well. So I was like, yeah, I got that feeling as well. Especially when it's really hot in your room, can't sleep.
What do you think about Crichton's behaviour this episode? Because this is something we discussed off camera, but this is not a season 8 thing, but because Kachansky's around, Crichton's become a whiny little bitch and quite annoying. I mean, you would think he was her boyfriend the amount of times he goes on about her pants. It gets relentless next week. But
I described it off camera as a paranoid android.
Yeah.
Because it's the first episode when he's being like a little bit self-conscious is funny, but it becomes the whole trope of his character throughout this season, which is a bit of a concern.
Yeah.
It's like he's one-dimensional of, I'm just going to be jealous of that character constantly.
No, it's just like, it's too much. It's too much. He even has dreams about it. That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
The weird thing is, Crichton treats her quite nicely this episode, and then next week he's back to being a dick again. It's very out of character at this time. I think maybe it just feels a bit off the community. I know, like character motivations change because it's comedy, and we're not meant to take it too seriously. But it was a bit weird after watching next week's episode as well, back to back. Just seeing how nice Crichton is this week.
I
mean,
I wonder how much of that is that they'd realised they got it wrong, because this was actually the last episode they filmed of the season.
Yeah, maybe.
So I'm wondering whether they'd already realised that maybe they got it slightly wrong.
Yeah.
And then didn't, in the ordering of it, didn't factor in the fact that it might seem a little bit unusual.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that could just be it. That logistically, they'd realised they'd kind of gone a little bit too far in one direction, and were starting to pull themselves back from it. But they then made it the middle episode of the season and had him being utterly insane in the episode after.
Yeah. There are a few things that Kachansky says that I don't normally relate her to my wife because I'm married, but like explaining offside to someone is very fucking hard. Like trying to explain the offside rule to my wife when we watch football is difficult, as Kachansky points out. And also, she's a bath, not shower person like my wife. I'm more of a shower guy, but, you know, interesting. We found quite a bit about Kachansky this week.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, this episode, I think, really could benefit from having a laughter track. Because there are moments when there are really good lines and you feel like there should be a laugh. And it's not there.
I mean, yeah.
And it feels like it falls slightly flat because of that.
I think next week it sounds really weird, though, next week. It definitely doesn't sound like the audience were actually there live for some of it.
Well, they weren't.
No, I know, but it sounds really off next week. Really weird.
No, I know what you mean. But
there is a great dream sequence that they react really well to. But we're not going to talk about that this week. Dan, what do you think so far?
That's muted. Dan? Dan is muted.
Hey guys, I spent a lot of time this episode. I was watching, trying to find similarities to the Marx Brothers film.
Okay.
Yeah, Duct Soup, yeah.
And failing.
I think it's just in tribute to.
And in the fact that I was doing that, like I was listening to quite a lot of the dialogue. And to be honest, Kachansky gets some good dialogue this time round.
Yeah, I've softened on her a little bit.
Like I do very much think that like it's less of an assault over time with her.
I still think she was the wrong casting choice, but
absolutely,
I don't hate her.
I figured out why I didn't like her when I was younger, because, you know, when you're younger, when I watched this when I was younger, I was a teenager and girls were smelly and you didn't want them in the boys' club. Now I've grown up a lot more, so I actually think she's not as bad as I remember her being. If anything, it's Crichton who needs a smack, which is a bit weird to say, but yeah, I
also think that I think that's because they're trying to play this the wrong way in the writing.
Okay.
Like, to play this story out properly, you would have to have Crichton start off being that person, but then have that person turn into kind of Kachansky being that person when another female shows interest.
Yeah.
Like, that would be playing out the story properly. Like, Crichton's just being sort of, this is maybe a bit of abandonment issues.
Yeah.
That kind of idea. Like,
yeah.
I've kind of been there, not in Crichton shoes, but in the sort of, when you have the friend who's suddenly like, yeah, but you have a new relationship. You know, that kind of thing.
Oh, I've had that as well. Yeah, it's annoying.
It wasn't that long ago, actually. It's been well up in here. It was quite annoying.
It does change when someone goes into a relationship, though. That's the thing. It's up to the friends to understand that and be cool about it. You know.
I think it's a bit of beach where you have to realise that you can't change your entire way you act as well when you go into a relationship, and just ignore your friends. And this is a discussion that could go on for hours.
Do we think then, to get back on the subject, do you think, Dan's made a good point, but do you think Lister is doing that to Crichton?
I think Crichton is panicking that that's what he's doing. I don't think Lister is actually.
We see the dream sequence where he kind of has a dream, not a dream.
Still very much relying on Crichton.
Yeah, where it appears it's quite a sad moment. He has a vision where he can see himself getting rid of the ship. Like, he completely is panicking, and he feels like Lister's going. But I think Lister comes quite well off this episode, because he's generally been rather nice.
Well, Lister is, as a general rule, a decent human being.
It's when you take Rimmer away, you can really see how nice he is, I think.
Yeah. But I mean, the fact that he's always looked out for Crichton.
He doesn't seem so childish when Rimmer's not around, because Rimmer's would normally antagonize him. Without Rimmer around, he's not so childish back to now. He hasn't got that childish side so much now. Have you noticed? Without Rimmer,
I think that's also a case of him trying to look mature in front of.
There's that as well. Yeah, Tom. Yeah.
Well, I would think he would have to start by not having a new hobby, which is watching panties washing in the washing machine. He needs to get a new hobby.
Well, he quite clearly states that he's not there because of that. It's the cat.
only
The
cat.
cat is a horn dog. But that's finally the cat gets the horn dog on a woman. Finally, 7 seasons consistently.
He was just like, I can't sleep here. That's the only reason why I'm here, cat.
The cat still gets one of my favourite lines in this when they end up in the ducts. Boy, is it cramped in here. Shut up. Sorry.
He was like, ooh,
Obviously, Kachansky, there is one bit, this is a personal observation, because I went to go to the toilet. I paused it. It's at the scene where Crichton's trying to he thinks, what's the move? The move. The Henrik? The Heineken. The Heineken's a beer. Yeah, you know the one I'm talking about. It does look like he's doing her up the arse. When I paused it, I come back and he definitely looks like he's giving her one over the table. That made me laugh.
I believe that may be subjective.
Yeah, very subjective sometimes.
Very, very subjective.
The opinions of Ben Gilman are not the opinions of Smug.
Yes.
Exactly.
All right. So Kachansky definitely confirms that she was born in Scotland. So I have a question, Tom. How did you get your accent to disappear like Kachansky then? Because obviously
in London.
What do you mean disappear?
I mean, well, I don't know. I'm just wondering, like, Kachansky got rid of her accent.
Tom's actually a pretty damn good performer and has a lot of accents down pat.
Okay.
Sorry to be taking on your answer for you, Tom. But
That's cool, man.
That's cool. You know him well.
The way that you hear Tom's accent come out is whenever he gets on the phone to his family while you're around.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah. You can't switch on with your family. It's true.
It completely switches every single time.
Although I do recall I once phoned Dan from Glasgow and he couldn't actually understand what I was saying.
That too, whenever you're in Scotland.
Yeah. But in answer to your question, Ben, I've spent a large part of my life in London. So
And that is how that happens.
Yeah. But I mean, this is the thing. You wouldn't know, unless you actually knew Glasgow, you wouldn't know that. And one of the things I started to wonder about is the Gorbals is one of the roughest areas of Glasgow in reality.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering whether her not having the accent and her coming from the Gorbals is because she's from an alternative universe. And maybe that's intentional rather than just pig ignorant, which is how I always felt about it before.
Yeah.
Because they actually picked the Gorbals, which is, although not a horrific area, is not nice. It's one of the rougher areas of Glasgow, considerably. So, yeah. I'm wondering whether it's a parallel universe thing that they made a conscious decision.
Yeah, probably.
But you just don't know. I mean, I don't want to prejudge Chloe Annette, but I don't think she could do a Scottish accent, probably.
It's good that they don't try.
Or one that wasn't going to offend the entire Scottish nation if they did it.
Yes. If she did, maybe they would want to leave the EU or the UK way ahead back in the 90s instead out of anger.
Please, the Scots have wanted to leave the UK since the 70s, if not
most
before.
probably will happen again. So we find out, at the time, we find out Kachansky's trying to get, she lies to, sorry, I can't, huh?
To Lister?
Yeah, sorry. My brain's just fried out today. Sorry. So we find out when they're in the ducts to fix out the heating and all that. We find out other Lister. At first, we think she's telling the truth because obviously she's trying to distract Lister from his claustrophobia. Do you get the feeling that Lister is definitely, because at first I thought he was homophobic, but I don't think he's that. I think he's just trying to assure her, I'm straight. I'm really straight. Don't you think? What do you think of it?
I don't think he's homophobic.
Nah.
No.
He's panicking because her version is apparently gay, and he's thinking she must think I'm gay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. Yeah.
And that's not as a negative. That's just as a I'm really not.
So Bob, though, you wouldn't be able to say that now, would you? You wouldn't. Is that okay? I wouldn't. I don't know many gay people that would get offended by being called
No.
Ben.
I don't. None of the people who I know who are gay would be offended by being called Ben, personally. But if it is offensive, then fair enough. I wouldn't use it as a term very often.
I've also got some gay friends who think the F word's not a bad term either. Some people do think it is, but it's interesting. Yeah. I do love how the cat thinks being claustrophobic makes you a sissy. That's quite.
Your boy, but just a little bit of sissy.
Yo, it's quite funny. In this day and age where men are encouraged to talk about their feelings and it's not a bad thing to be a bit weak, it's definitely a very old way of thinking. It's quite funny. It did make me laugh. Very nostalgic.
Yeah, sissy. I know, it made me laugh. It cracked me up a little.
So we find out Kachansky sounds like a Rusty. I do love the Rusty Gate comment.
The Rusty Gate?
Yes. Kachansky thinks Crichton is talking about Rusty Gate, which is the noise she makes when she makes love. No, Rimmer's just talking about the time Lister said about the Rusty Gate at his grandma's house. Brilliant. It's that got a good chuckle out of me, even without an audience.
It's true. I think we need to vaguely explain for anybody who doesn't know. Basically, Crichton panics that Lister is going to have sex with Kachansky, so shuts down all of the heating systems, and they have to go through the air ducts to try and find it. When we discover that Lister has claustrophobia, although do not get me onto the continuity error that is him and claustrophobia.
Yeah.
And yeah, so basically that's the whole idea, is that they're stuck in the ducts above, like, the sleeping quarters and all the other areas, and Kachansky's trying to distract Lister because he's getting claustrophobic. And then you've got, is the backwash comes through every 6 hours, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then the dryers and all that. So so I just don't feel like we've kind of covered exactly why they're in the ducts.
Yeah, I make the jokes, and I'm always grateful for the rest of you. You and Dan are always good at the stats and the facts and the stories, because I just come here to crack dick jokes, brother. I'll be honest with you.
Oh yeah. Go on.
What do you think about Lister's story about where the claustrophobic comes from?
It's quite a good story.
It's quite funny.
I mean, I'm sure that he mentioned being claustrophobic once before in an episode, like in season 2 or 3.
It was a while ago. Yeah, he said something. It was a passing comment.
Yeah, but then there are other episodes, like, when they go to the wax droid world, and he ends up in that chimney.
Yeah,
and he doesn't mention the fact that he's claustrophobic, and it's like it's a weird one, because I mean they kind of justify it in this episode by him saying it comes and goes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like they get out of jail free card for it, but it's still a little bit of a continuity issue for me.
Yeah, because he kind of explained it was as like if he knows he can get out of it, that's what he said. That's he kind of,
but when he's in that chimney, he doesn't know where he is. Let alone
exactly. So, yeah.
But the thing with the claustrophobia thing and the being in the ducts, it works really well for this episode. It's not the funniest episode, although there are some good lines.
Good character development, though.
But that's the point. It's really the only other episode of Red Dwarf that is anywhere close to this level of character development is Marooned from season 4.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, both of those were the episode where they didn't have enough budget to do anything more than what they did. That's the reason that Duct Soup is set up the way it is. Yeah. Because they were running out of money, so they tried to sort of minimize the sets and everything.
This is a episode where, to be fair, the crew did not enjoy this recording this episode. Apparently, I remember reading the Robert Llewellyn book. You should listen. You should read it as well. It's a great book about Red Dwarf.
Right.
And he swore up and down about Duct Soup. He fucking hated it, apparently, because of the water got everywhere. He was just constantly getting splashed with water, and just horrible, especially with his makeup on. I can imagine
that must have been torture.
Oh god, yeah. But when we get to the next episode, Blue, there was a scene in there that Craig Charles, Danny John Jules, and Robert Llewellyn absolutely hated, and Chloe Annette loved.
Yeah.
Like properly, the three of them hated it, and she absolutely loved it.
Oh my gosh.
But we will come to that when we come to that episode.
Yeah.
Just happens to be my favourite scene in that episode. But
Next week will be Blue.
Blue.
Yeah. So what do we think of this episode? Is there anything like favourite quotes that you want to say, or anything else that we've missed?
Oh, I've got just one which kind of summed up the entire episode from Kachansky, but I'm going to leave it for my sign off.
For your outro.
Okay.
Fair enough. I still think my favourite one is when Kachansky goes away, Kat joins Lister and is like, boy, is it cramped?
I just enjoyed Kat being a perv since Kachansky.
Ooh, if I was in here, you dead. If I was dead, you definitely could not swing me in here.
It's amazing. It's quite amazing the number of people these pipes have driven to the very brink of psychosis. Mr. Lister spent the night in there once, and he ended up trying to suffocate himself to death with an onion sandwich.
Do you think that Crichton has intentionally put her in that room?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Guaranteed.
The thing is, I think
Tunga.
I do love the cat. I mean, they've done this before with the cat, where he just doesn't think and just starts talking about a subject he's not meant to. It's always funny. It's so endearing.
He's a cat. This is what
brilliant.
cats do. They don't
Cat
give two
doesn't give a
shits.
fuck. I love it. Cat just doesn't give a fuck. Brilliant. So where would you put this then?
In this series, or
Next week is better, obviously, but this is not not hateable. It's a small episode.
Are you talking about for this series or for the entirety of Red Dwarf?
This series, because this series is up and down.
Okay, so first episode with the JFK stuff was amusing.
Yes.
Second episode is obviously the return of Ace Rimmer, which is always fun.
Next week,
the guy skydiving on a crocodile, and saving Princess Bonjela.
Yeah,
that's going to be high on your list.
Absolutely.
Episode 3 is a bit jarring because of the new Kachansky.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad episode. And yeah, this one, like I said, it's very similar to Marooned in that it's an opportunity for them to do a lot of character development, especially between Kachansky and Lister, which I think holds the rest of the season in good stead. So this episode needed to be slightly more sort of character development rather than funny to make the rest of the series more fun. Because you brought a lot of the old stories and things got brought up in one go.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing for me about this episode is this is the very first time ever in Red Dwarf that Chris Barry has not appeared.
Yeah.
And it's a weird moment.
He's back next week, and then it's like, see in a few weeks, Chris, after that. It's going to be quite funny. He doesn't really go away from Red Dwarf for too long. It's amazing.
Yeah. But, I mean, like I say, it's kind of jarring that he doesn't appear even for a second in this episode.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like the end of an era kind of thing, and then a week later he's back. But
I think Kachansky does quite well this week.
Yeah.
And like I said, older me really appreciates her a lot more now that I don't think women are all smelly things.
So basically, what you're saying is you had to go through adolescence to appreciate Chloe.
I think I was more of a hang out with the guy when I was a kid. You know what I mean? I thought girls were just women. But I went to college and I just decided to start treating women with more respect. So it's cool. I've turned out okay.
See, I was already about 15, 16 when this came out, so I was already taking far greater interest in women at that point.
Yeah, me too. But I just thought the club of the boys has now got a woman in it. I just at the time was so pissed off. So I want Rimmer back. He's a Nazi walking type guy, but he's my guy. He's part of my group. What's this girl doing here?
Fair enough. Well, if you want to get technical in the next series, you find out that Crichton was always a woman.
Yeah, That's really one of the greatest of all time in season 8. But we'll get to that.
Crikey TV.
The shower room. Anyway, that's cool. What
Change your prices, please.
okay, so it's goodbye from me.
Bye from me.
Back me.
And goodbye from me. I'm very sorry. I just had to look it up. It's enough to make a perfectly sane person crazy. And that's my excuse.
Lovely. And next week it's
Long
blue.
prosper. Oh, also, I'm being haunted by a ghost.
Lovely. Next week's blue, so da da na 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 na.